Welcome to That Bible Guy. Is God immoral for killing in the Old Testament? More specifically, is he immoral for commanding others to kill in the Old Testament? We know what we're talking about. There's passages in the Old Testament where God commands the Israelites to go and kill the Canaanites, and many passages like that cause people trouble. Many atheists and others throw out this accusation to Christians and say, well, you claim this moral high ground, like there's this way that we should act in life, and yet your God acts like this. He commands people to commit genocide of women and children, and it's a big problem for many Christians. So that question I asked today, is God immoral for killing in the Old Testament? A few things to say, and at the very end, listen out, I'm going to give an illustration and maybe reveal something from my past, but an illustration about how we can understand this, which really, in my view, really helps. Well, the first thing to say, usually an atheist or someone with genuine objections throws out this idea, is God immoral for killing in the Old Testament or some other crime that they claim? Well, the first thing to say was, if you're coming from an atheistic worldview, unfortunately, you don't actually have any objective moral standard to go by to claim that God's immoral, or in fact that anyone's immoral. So from an atheistic standpoint, to not believe in God, there is no way to determine that someone's actions are right and wrong, because we just don't have an objective standard. You have a subjective feelings about what you don't like, but that's all it is. Now, if you want to come across with me for a moment to engage in my worldview and accept that, okay, right, there is a God, let's judge his actions. Are they immoral for killing in the Old Testament? Well, just to say, and I've said this in previous videos before, God's command to kill, which he has given in the Old Testament, and we'll get through some more of this in a moment, it was never arbitrary. It was never given because of he didn't like this xenophobic, he didn't like these people, or just he got mad on a given day, prone to outbursts of anger, like most of us could be in the world. It wasn't arbitrary and random and driven by hatred, xenophobia, racism, or any of these other factors. It wasn't the issue. In fact, the issue, as we know, in many cases was because of this sinfulness of the nations. One of the Canaanites in particular were known for sacrificing their children to this false god Molech, putting the babies into the red hot arms to sizzle. And apparently there was music was played. The Greek historians wrote about music was played to drown out the noise of the children. Horrendous crimes were being done. Now here's a question for you though. So people complain, and I've been many people have done this, even recently have done this. They said, if there was a God, if I was to believe in a God, he would have to be a God that stops all this evil in the world. I mean, that's surely what he would do if he was God. Well, okay, your outcry comes because you say that God doesn't deal with evil, but whenever he does in the Old Testament deal with evil, we complain. So we complain when he doesn't deal with evil, and then in instances where he does, we still complain. God, in a way, in this situation, you could argue, can't do right in some people's eyes. Some people's eyes. But there were morally sufficient reasons given in Scripture for why God would command these actions to be taken. And that is one of the other points. The other thing to say is, well, the question that raises in all of this really is, well, is God committing murder? Is God himself being immoral? He claims that we shouldn't do something, but it's okay for him to do it. Double standard. I've heard that a few times recently. I'm going to give us an illustration in a moment that helps me with that. But it's just to say, though, to dig deep is useful. Great book is God, a Moral Monster, Paul Copan. He writes in Deuteronomy, about Deuteronomy 7 and Deuteronomy 20, that the Israelites were commanded in those chapters to not intermarry with the Canaanites, with the people that they're supposed to have annihilated. And it said that the hyperbolic warfare terminology was being used in Scripture, as was the custom at that time. So when they were told to go and annihilate a group, it wasn't actually to kill them all. As we might say in sports, or we might say in other fields, I went and annihilated this person. It doesn't mean that I wiped them out. It may only mean that the terminology being used may only mean that we were driven out. They were dealt with. We weren't connecting with them, because why would the passage thereafter say that they shouldn't intermarry with these people? So that's another thing that we can look into. It might not always be what we think it is when it comes to murder, but let's just say it is, right? Let's just say God did tell them, go and destroy these people. Well, I accept and I believe, and I always have, ultimately, although it doesn't mean I don't ask questions, that God has the right to take life. God has the rights, as the creator of life, as the giver of laws, to do something that we aren't allowed to do. Let me give you an example of that. Well, let's just say that someone, and this happened when I was young, someone bothers me or bothers you, and they do things against us or our family that we don't like, and we decide, right, I'm going to take this person off the streets. I'm going to imprison them in a room. This has been done, unfortunately. I'm going to deprive them of all the rights that they normally would have, and I'm going to lock them in a building somewhere. I'm going to do that to this person. What would happen? You would hopefully be arrested for kidnap, for torture, and for all the things that you didn't give this person, all the rights that you took away from them, because you cannot do that. However, does that mean that no one can do such a thing to this individual that was out there perpetrating crimes on the streets? No. Of course, we would expect the law enforcement to step up, arrest this person, and they should be put inside in the jail, maybe, done something sufficiently wrong, where they are locked up in a building, where they are deprived of all the rights. So this is just to say that the same standard doesn't apply to all peoples. I can't do something that I expect the law enforcement, the authorities, I expect them to do something that I can't do. So there's different rights for different people. As the creator of all life, as the moral lawgiver, the standard of all that's right and wrong, clearly God can do things for morally sufficient reasons that we necessarily can't do. He gave life, he can take it away. So hopefully some of this has helped today in this quick video today. I said this illustration has really, really helped me in terms of understanding, yes, what God does and what he expects of his the created people is a little bit different. If this has helped you today, please hit the like button. Please, if you would, really share this on. It really helps the channel to grow. Please subscribe to that Bible Guy if you haven't already, and let's get his word out there.